You know that feeling when someone asks you what your childhood was like? A therapist, a first date, just someone being curious, and you open your mouth to answer, and there's just nothing there? Not trauma, not a dramatic story, just this strange blankness, like you're reaching for a file that should exist and finding the folder weirdly empty? It's not that you don't have memories, you have some. But somewhere between age 7 and 17, there's this gap, chapters you can't quite access, and you don't know if you ever lived them or if you just skipped them. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you've always had this vague sense that you grew up way faster than other kids. That while they were learning to be kids, you were learning to be something else entirely. Something the world needed you to be. And here's the thing, that version of you, it didn't go anywhere. It's still running the show, and you probably don't even know how. Most people who discover this pattern think the answer is to go find their inner child, do some journaling, maybe cry about it. And look, I'm not dismissing that, but that framing misses the most important part. This isn't about the past. It's about what your nervous system is doing right now, today, in your relationships, your career, your inability to just sit still and do nothing without feeling like something's wrong. The past is just where the wiring happened. Hey, I'm Martin. This channel is about understanding how your psychology actually works. Not the pop science version, the real version. If that's your thing, subscribe. Let's get into it. Picture an 8-year-old kid who has just quietly, without anyone announcing it, become the most responsible person in their house. Not because they chose it, just because the math worked out that way. Maybe a parent was struggling, economically, emotionally, physically. Maybe there was chaos that needed managing, and this kid looks around and does what kids do. They adapt. They figure out what's needed, and they become it. Fast. Psychologists call this parentification, when a child takes on the emotional or functional roles that should belong to adults. But that word is almost too clean for what it actually is. Because from the outside, this kid looks impressive, mature, reliable, wise beyond their years, adults keep saying, and that kid starts to believe it, starts to build their whole identity around it. Which would be fine, except, and here's what nobody tells you about that. What looks like maturity isn't maturity at all. Dr. Lisa Hooper, who has done some of the most thorough research on parentification, found that what we're actually looking at is a survival adaptation. A child's nervous system learning, at a foundational level, that crisis is the default state. That their job is to manage it, that there is no off switch. And that nervous system, it comes with you into adulthood. Here's what this looks like from the outside. You're the person people call in a crisis, the reliable one, the one who just handles things. You probably read the emotional temperature of a room the second you walk into it, accurately, almost automatically. You anticipate what people need before they know they need it. You're excellent at managing up, managing down, making everyone comfortable, keeping things smooth. People describe you as capable, grounded, strong. And from the inside, you're exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You feel alone even in rooms full of people who love you. You can't stop planning for the 17 ways something might go wrong. And somewhere underneath all of it, there is this faint, persistent feeling that if you stop performing all of this, everything, and you specifically, will fall apart. Here's what's actually happening underneath that. And this is the part most people miss entirely. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was trained to do. When you were small and the environment was unpredictable, your nervous system made an extraordinarily intelligent decision. It learned to stay on, all the time. Hypervigilance, that's the clinical term. But before we call it that, understand what it is. It's a threat detection system that got stuck in the on position because switching off once felt dangerous. Your body learned that rest meant things might collapse, that vulnerability meant exposure, that needing things meant burdening people who were already at their limit. The research on this is striking. Studies out of Harvard's Center on the Developing Child found that chronic stress in childhood, even the low-grade ambient kind, not necessarily dramatic abuse, fundamentally alters the development of the stress response system. The brain's alarm circuitry becomes quite literally more reactive, more sensitive, more likely to flag ordinary situations as threats, which means the 40-year-old version of you sitting in a perfectly safe meeting, perfectly safe relationship, perfectly safe life, can still feel in the body like the 8-year-old who couldn't afford to let their guard down. Trying to logic your way out of that, by the way, is like arguing with a fire alarm. Your body doesn't care that you know it's a drill. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because this pattern has a cost, and it's incredibly specific. It's not the big things. People who grew up too fast are shockingly competent at big things. Crises, responsibilities, hard decisions, they can handle those almost without thinking. It's the small things that become impossible. Asking for help, resting without guilt, being silly, carefree, receiving love without immediately looking for the catch. Those things feel almost dangerous because they require you to lower a defense system that your entire survival history says you cannot lower. Which brings us to relationships, and this is the part that tends to hit hardest. If you grew up this way, you almost certainly find yourself drawn to people who need you. Partners, friends, colleagues, people with problems you can solve, wounds you can tend to. And I know that sounds like it should come with a diagnosis, but before you go there, understand the actual mechanism. Being needed doesn't just feel good to you. It feels like love. It's the primary form of love you learn to recognize. The form that felt safe. Because the version that asks nothing of you, that just offers presence and consistency and warmth with no transaction attached, that one feels wrong, uncomfortable, like waiting for the other shoe to drop, like it can't possibly be real. Attachment researchers going back to John Bowlby and more recently the work of Dan Siegel on interpersonal neurobiology have shown that the relational patterns we develop in childhood become templates, actual neural structures, for how we interpret intimacy as adults. Familiar doesn't mean healthy, it means familiar. And sometimes familiar is a place where you gave constantly and received very little. So when someone shows up and just loves you, no crisis, no emergency, no role for you to play, your nervous system goes, this doesn't compute. That's not a personality flaw. That's a nervous system looking for data that matches its map. The hidden cost of all of this, though, and this is what I want you to sit with, is what it does to your sense of self over decades. Because the world rewards people who grew up too fast. Relentlessly. You're productive. You're independent. You're low maintenance. You deliver. Nobody asks what it cost you to become this way. And over time, you start to mistake the coping mechanism for the person. The reliable one. The capable one. The one who holds it together. You stop seeing those as things you learn to do and start seeing them as things you simply are. This is what psychologists call identity fusion with a role, and Gabor Mate writes about this extensively in the context of trauma. When the adaptive self, the self who is built for survival, gets so convincing that it crowds out the actual self underneath. Most people spend their entire lives doing this without ever realizing it. They optimize the coping mechanism and call it growth. And the uncomfortable truth is that's not healing. That's just a more elegant version of the same cage. Here's where most people go completely wrong when they realize all of this. They try to fix it by thinking about it. They read the books. They understand the theory. They can now explain their attachment style in clinical language at dinner parties. They know why they do what they do, and they do it anyway, because understanding a nervous system pattern doesn't rewire it. Information alone does not create felt safety. The brain doesn't update its threat response through insight. It updates through experience, through repeated embodied experiences of being vulnerable and having it go okay, of asking for something and receiving it, of letting the guard down and the world not ending. This is what the research on neuroplasticity actually shows. Not that thinking differently changes the brain, but that new experiences do. Specifically, the work of Bessel van der Kolk in The Body Keeps the Score made this viscerally clear. The body carries this. And the body has to be part of how it heals. Which means the work isn't intellectual, it's relational. It's somatic. It's learning slowly and imperfectly to tolerate being taken care of. Two places to start that are actually grounded in what the research shows. First, notice when you're managing instead of experiencing. There's a version of you that, in any emotional situation, immediately shifts into logistics mode. What does this person need? How do I fix this? What's the right thing to say? That shift is the coping mechanism activating. Just noticing it, not judging it, just clocking it, creates the first tiny gap between stimulus and response. That gap is everything. Second, practice receiving something small without deflecting it. A compliment, an offer of help, a moment of care. Don't minimize it, don't immediately redirect it, don't make a joke. Just let it land. Your nervous system will probably hate this at first. That discomfort is data. It means you found the edge of your window of tolerance, and edges are exactly where growth happens. Here's the reframe I want to leave you with, because I think this is the most important thing. You didn't grow up too fast because something was wrong with you. You grew up too fast because you were intelligent and adaptive, and you were doing what any brilliant nervous system does. You solved the problem in front of you. That kid was resourceful. That kid was brave. That kid kept things together under conditions that would have broken a lot of adults. But here's what that kid never got to hear. You were not put on this earth to be useful. You were put here to be alive. And those are not the same thing. The most radical thing you can do now, the thing that is actually countercultural, given everything your history trained you toward, is to stop performing competence and start practicing humanity. Messy, needy, sometimes irresponsible, fully alive humanity. You've been the one who holds it together for so long, it's allowed to not be your job anymore.